So this week's episode is inspired by a quote that I saw on social media. It's actually a quote attributable to JJ Watt, who was a football player. I don't know the position, but he just retired from the Arizona Cardinals.
Very good.
Laura is the football guru out of this duo. And Mel Robbins had posted it to her Instagram earlier this week. And so the quote is, confidence isn't about walking in a room and thinking you are better than everyone. It's walking in and not having to compare yourself to anyone at all.
So good.
I mean, so good.
Yeah.
And this week we wanted to talk about the topic of confidence. Something that Laura and I certainly had to really practice and grow that muscle of confidence, especially right now when we're in the throes of still building our firm, but even more so when we went out on our own and having to answer to all the questions that everybody has about the business and the vision that we have, and really developed into, these conversations with other women and other colleagues of what are you doing, and really having to be able to not question ourselves and just be very firm in our beliefs as to where we're going with this firm. It also, I think, applies to us being podcasters, which we love to do. And it's definitely a facet of Laura and I and our business that I don't think we could envision us not doing it anymore.
Definitely not.
It's just such an important outlet for us. And with that, we talk about a lot of vulnerable topics on here. We talk about like real life stuff happening to the both of us, which requires the confidence to be able to be vulnerable and share. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about confidence.
Which can be hard to do when you're in a profession where you feel like you need to seem tough all the time and not be vulnerable. And like, if you asked me, even when I was your age, right? So how many years have you been practicing? 10?
Almost 10, yeah.
So I've been practicing almost 21. And so even when I was out 10 years, if you had told me that I would one day like have a podcast where we'd be talking about life issues and stuff like that, I would have said, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. No.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, it has to do with having the confidence to not compare yourself to anybody at all. And I think that that's something that's developed over time.
Yeah.
Like, we're not born with that.
No, confidence in my definition is certainly a muscle. And I know that a lot of people will say this as well. A lot of thought leaders in personal development and growth will say that confidence is a muscle. There is really no starting point and ending point of confidence. Like Laura said, you're not just like born confident. You're not also just trained to a certain point where you're like, oh, I'm confident in everything that I do. But I feel like this quote is such a good measure, right?
Yeah.
If you were to do that visualization exercise and said to yourself, like for us, let's walk into an event with all of our colleagues from our county bar association, and walking in there and not having to say, oh, I bet I had more cases than this one, or, oh, I bet I've settled more cases, or I have a bigger team than this one. Like, we never think those thoughts.
No. And when I was younger, my thoughts were, I don't have as much experience as this person, and I haven't handled as many cases as this person, and I'm not as experienced as this partner that I'm working for. And that's why I say it really is something that's developed over time, because I wouldn't say that I was not confident. It's just different. I just, at that point in time, so many years ago, would compare myself to other attorneys that I worked with and who I had cases against, and think that I was lesser because I didn't have the same experience, right? So I was not. I guess I was not confident in myself because I was comparing myself for a long time to so many other people. And then fast forward to when I had kids, forget it. I'm not as good as these other attorneys because I have to leave the office to get home to my kids.
Right.
I can't work on the weekends because we have sports this weekend. Like, you name it. And I would feel like I was lesser than because of other things that I had going on in my life. And it's only now, really, I would say maybe over the last year or two or something like that, where I really stopped comparing myself to anyone, Because,
Yeah.
you know, as we've grown personally, you realize that you're on your own journey,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And actually, if you guys will remember, if you're an avid listener to our podcast, confidence is one of my words for 2023.
That's correct.
So when I read this quote online, it resonated with me because I shut down the comparison game like years ago. And it was right around actually after I had Olivia, because you see the picture perfect, like moms on Instagram with all of their parties and their,
Mhm.
you know, decor, and they can keep their house clean, even though they have a newborn running amok. And I'm like, that's not going to be my reality. And I just like accepted it, I guess, but also had confidence that I'm not doing a lesser job just because somebody else is doing the job differently. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
But then this quote really resonated with me because we've talked about, you know, confidence in your abilities. And that was something that I felt like I kept on struggling with, of like, I know my stuff, but I'm just nervous. I feel like I didn't have like a safety net to fall back on, or somebody was always agreeing with me and like maybe affirming the thoughts or the decisions or the strategies I have. But so that's how I'm still working on confidence. And again, I have to keep building it like I would build a muscle, like you would build a muscle at the gym, or you would learn a new skill. I think confidence falls in that bucket. And I think it's a disservice to think that you are either just born with confidence or you're not, or if you don't have it now, it might be too late for you to get it. Right. Like, I don't think that's the truth whatsoever.
No, it's definitely something that's developed over time. And I can just see it thinking about over the span of my career. Because I think of just the definition of confidence so much different now than I did way back when. So now I look at it as comparing myself to myself
Mm-hmm.
and not anybody else. And you said something that's so important. It's like, you know, you see social media, it has so many benefits, but so many negatives as well.
Yeah.
And one of the negatives is seeing what other people are doing and seeing, you know, that other people might be building their firm different than we are and doing things different than we are. Like you mentioned, other moms, like on social media, and
Mm-hmm.
comparing yourself to them. And so where I am now, I can look at, and I'm thinking of one firm in particular, I won't say which one it is, but it's a firm that I love. I love the founding partner. And you know, when I see him put things out on LinkedIn, I don't think to he started his firm, I think 14 years ago. And when I see him put things out on LinkedIn about things that his firm is doing, and they have a new partner and all these different things, like, I don't think to myself, oh no, like I should be doing that.
Right.
Or he's here and I'm here and I'm not doing well enough. Like every time I see his post, I am so excited for him and what his firm is doing. I love what they stand for. I love what they're doing. And I'm just genuinely happy for him and what he has built. And I don't look at it like, oh my God, I'm not good enough because I'm not doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that is so important. And it actually dovetails exactly where I was thinking this conversation was going to go, which is how you receive information and how you process it. Like, how you can see another person succeeding and you're like, wow, that doesn't take away anything from me, right? Like that, to me, it actually shows that that's an opportunity. That's a path that I could be on if that's what I wanted, because he's showing that it's possible.
Yeah.
Right. And for Laura and I doing this podcast, it's the same thing. Like, we felt that there had to be a way we could serve other women, particularly other professional women that might be going through the same stuff that we are. And we chose to be vulnerable on here. And by the way, there's no level of comparison to other, or like lack of confidence as to other podcasters that might be doing it differently. This is how we do it. Like, that's just what it is. And the way that we want to improve is by having a conversation like, how could we serve better? How could we serve the people that are listening to the podcast better, and not how can we be more like X, Y, or Z?
Right. It's about how we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think back to before we started our own practice, were you in that mindset?
No,
No.
no. But I think that's a testament to the changes and the choices that we made, because if we didn't make the choice to do it this way, we would have had to be like, held hostage to the old way of thinking, the old way of doing. Like, if you're not putting in all the hours, you're not doing the work. Well, that's actually not true, because we'll leave it at that. It's just not true. It's just not true. And those kinds of statements can really hold somebody back so tremendously if you believe them, because then you can't realize your own potential, and you can't realize like what proof you have to look back on to say you are confident, you can make really great decisions, you do possess the skills to do whatever it is that you are doing. If you're an attorney like us, you can bring in those big clients, you can service them in a very robust and well-rounded way. And I think that that's a tip that I want to drop here for building confidence. It's great if we talk about what confidence is and how we define it, but you need to also have some tactical tips to take with you. So I think my tip to contribute here to this conversation would be, if you want to determine whether or not you are a confident person, or if you possess confidence, take a look back at the successes that you've had in whatever area it is, right?
Yeah.
If you look back, and I've heard this called like your book of proof.
Mhm.
There is a very well-known direct marketer from Beachbody that we used to follow. She was like a top leader in the company. And I remember her calling it a book of proof. Like, go back and look at your wins. Look at the things that you've done well and write those down, and remind yourself of like the things that you were able to achieve, because that's a deposit into your confidence bank. You can't look back at that and be like, oh, but that was just a success then. No, but that's proof that you can do whatever it is that you're wanting to do.
And it's most likely that when you go back and look at your successes, they were things where you were being true to yourself. Does that make sense? Because when we were in a place where we were not confident and not feeling great, not sure where to go, comparing ourselves to other people, we were not in a very authentic place. Right? So we were in a time period where we weren't true to ourselves. We were trying to work all the hours and do all the things and fit into a model that really wasn't true to us.
Yes.
And that changes over time, right? So that model was true to me when I first started practicing. And I was working for a big law firm, and I was working for 7 different partners. And so but I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. Like, I was in a totally different phase of my life.
And it's what you knew.
It's what I knew.
Right.
And it's what I thought it was supposed to be.
Right.
Right. I didn't know any different. But as I got older and I had kids, it changed.
Yeah.
And so that was no longer true to me. And when that was no longer true to me was when I think my confidence really dipped, because I was then comparing myself to everybody who was doing it the old way. Right. And I was at that point struggling to continue the old way. And so I thought there was something wrong with me. And like, why couldn't I keep doing it that way?
Yeah.
But it's because at the time it wasn't true to me.
I absolutely love that, which we could dovetail off and talk about that for about 10 more hours if we really wanted to. But it's really so true. You're going to feel it. Like, it's a feeling. That's why people will listen and be like, you guys, sometimes you're just a little like, woo, out there, but it's so true. Like, you really have to tap into yourself and realize how much you can trust yourself and your gut feelings and like your instincts, because this ties into right around the same time where Laura and I were like, we are not living up to this expectation of this standard of confidence and expertise. Therefore, we must not be doing something right. Therefore, we have no basis to say that we're confident. And oh, by the way, maybe we don't even want to do this thing anymore because of it. It was like a snowball effect, downhill so fast. And then on the flip side, now I can say every single day, practicing law is a part of something that I just love to do.
And I was thinking like this week, it doesn't even, yes, what we do is super stressful,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yes.
Amy had the day of all days yesterday. Her email was hacked. It was
This is
like
awful.
this is such a nightmare.
So bad.
But a lot of days it doesn't even feel like work.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really feel like we're coming to work. Like in our past life, it was okay, got to get to the office, be here by
Yeah.
this time, leave at this time, blah blah blah. And now it doesn't, for me, it doesn't really feel like I'm coming to work.
No, like those general notions of like trudging in to get there for the 9 a.m. call, you know, like all of that is kind of dispelled. The day feels a little more flow state like, it feels a little more fluid than it ever has. And that also is a product of the kind of work that we're doing. We're doing a lot of different, more transactional heavy work too, especially right now. But it's like all of that considered, it really is exactly what Laura said. It's tapping into the authentic way that we wanted to practice law by doing it this way, building the firm that we're the way that we're doing it, practicing and serving specific clients that we want to work with, and not just everything that, you know, touches the doorknob to come inside.
Yes.
That's
And
not,
so like you could not have said anything better.
but I want to say one other thing too about that is that if you're doing something the same old way and it's not sustainable, it's never going to be successful.
That's right. And I cannot even emphasize how differently we are building and operating our business now as opposed to where we were even 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So right now, Amy and I are both in leggings and sneakers.
And basically matching too,
right.
if you're watching,
Not
not
on
planned.
purpose. Not planned. And 4 years ago, we could have I would have thought that I wasn't working. I wasn't
Right.
dressed appropriately. Oh my God, I'm not a good lawyer. I'm not in fancy clothes. I'm not dressed. Like, it was a totally different mindset.
Yeah.
And where we are now, here in the middle of the day, in our office, enjoying our work, in leggings, matching shirts, recording our podcast. What we are building is now true to us. And that's why when I go on LinkedIn and I see my colleague building his firm, who, by the way, it's different.
A completely different firm.
Building it a different way. I feel like it's more of a traditional law firm.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy I can look at him and say, wow, that is good for him.
Yeah.
That is so amazing.
Yeah.
It's not what we're building, but it's different. But that is true to him. And this is true to us.
That's the ultimate takeaway though, is that the comparison is going, what is the phrase? Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Literally, comparison is going to steal every ounce of the joy that you have in the process of whatever it is that you're building, creating, striving for. And so for us, I think it's really important to leave here that the way that we're doing things might not necessarily be joyful to everybody else.
Absolutely. There are, I'm sure, other attorneys out there that look at us and be like, okay,
yeah,
that's not a real law firm.
It's not a real law firm, right? Because it's just not the traditional model, and that's totally fine. Hey, guess what? We're like, okay, bless and release, do it your way. We're gonna do it our way, and we're totally fine in our bubble doing it our own way and serving the clients that we're serving. So don't take away from this episode that you have to be doing the things that Laura and Amy are doing in order to be confident.
No.
Take away from this episode that you need to start searching within you to figure out those wins and that book of proof for yourself to show that you are confident, and leaning into those whispers that we always talk about of where you think you're being the most authentic you, where you feel the most confident, and then follow that light and see where that kind of takes you.
Yes, so that when you do walk into a room, you don't think you're better than everyone else. You walk into the room and you compare yourself to only yourself and not anyone else at all. So we hope these tips were helpful. We thank you for spending time with us, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.